The Steelseries Arctis Nova Pro Wireless has been my go-to gaming headset in the wireless space because of 3 reasons: swappable batteries, simultaneous Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz connection, and comfort. The microphone has its faults, it doesn't sound that great. The active noise cancellation isn't anything crazy, it removes the humming of my AC in the background, but that's about it. And I have been searching for a new pair just because the nubbin on the interior is becoming a little bit annoying. Either my ears are growing, either the ear cushions are becoming a bit more flat, and therefore I'm starting to feel that nubbin on the interior, but it wasn't an issue then, but it's becoming an issue now. And so Turtle Beach reached out and they were like, "We think you might like this more versus your Steelseries," and I highly doubt that. With a Turtle Beach, at least from my perception, you remember them being sold at the Source or the Shack. I'm still glad they're around, but the Stealth Pro is promising to become the better thing versus the Nova Pro Wireless. Apparently they're #1 in gaming audio. I highly doubt that, but I still definitely want to test this out for myself. I mean, this thing has swappable batteries just like the Steelseries. It has simultaneous Bluetooth connection. It has dual microphones, so one removable and one that's built into the headset, so you don't need to have this thing around if you still want voice comms. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is this wireless microphone?
You said it was $330, right?
$330.
It sounds good.
Is anything annoying about the quality?
No, it gets the job done. We're streaming, you're halfway across the world. Like, it'd be interesting to test the microphone quality between, so online versus local, like how much of a difference is it really?
Microphone quality on here is actually not too bad in terms of noise cancellation. It is active noise cancelling on the microphone by default. You cannot disable it to get a little bit more clarity on something that sounds slightly more resolution and something a bit more clear. But in terms of like canceling out keyboard strokes or something in your environment, I would say it would be totally passable. It also has the mic mute functionality when you put it in the upright position. This is the signature preset, which is set by default. I actually prefer the full EQ preset for the microphone that adds a little bit more bass and removes some of that tinniness. There's also the clarity preset, which does exactly the opposite. I do not like this. And finally, this is the smooth preset. I'm not sure what's so smooth about it. I would stick to signature or full. Turtle Beach is also very proud of having built-in microphones. So if you remove the boom arm, you can still use this. But look what happens. When you unplug the boom mic, the built-in microphones are for some reason muted. You can only enable them in the software or holding the S button for 2 seconds, which took me like 35 minutes to find in the manual because nothing is clear with this damn product. Luckily, the built-in microphones are actually usable for some clear communication. They're not as good as the boom arm, but they're not horrible. Also, the only way to enable mic... Why did you shut down? I'm not sure why, but the headset just disconnected completely, even though it was on, being recognized in the software, and I'm using the microphone to record this demo. Man, nothing but bugs over here. So the only way to enable mic side tone is through the software, which is unfortunate because you can remap some of the buttons on the headset to do something else, but apparently not enable mic side tone, which is a very important feature, especially for this headset because the passive isolation is really good. And when you enable ANC to further mute your environment and being able to hear yourself slightly is very nice. I did find a bug where if I disable mic side tone in the software, it is grayed out and I cannot enable it back up unless I restart the application. That is so frustrating for a $330 product. I hope that survived. In-camera audio, because that thing totally just crapped out. It wasn't that big of a fall, come on. At least the good thing is that when you plug back the boom mic, it auto switches to that microphone. I will say the microphone quality on the Arctis Nova Pro Wireless is slightly worse versus the boom arm on the Stealth Pro. Just for fun, here's the HyperX Cloud Alpha, another wireless headset I've been experimenting with because this thing has 300-hour battery life, and so this thing I'm taking it for a spin in the long term. HyperX have never had a good microphone on the headset, and this one is no exception. Come on, just buy a good quality capsule like the Corsair. Because whatever microphone capsule Corsair is sourcing, that is the way to go for a wireless headset. Even though it's not as noise cancelling, it is super clear, lots of definition, and it doesn't have that wireless feel, So my complaint #1 is the build quality and refinement. This feels to me like a $100 headset from a feel perspective, like touching everything, navigating, the size extensions work, but there's like some good density and then it becomes loose. The little parts between the pleather and the plastic and the pleather and like the aluminum pieces, they're not as refined as you would expect for such a price point. There's physical contact between the plastic and when you rotate the ear cup, which I feel like shouldn't happen. It is already tearing off some of that plastic. And when I wear this thing, you know, looks are totally subjective, and this thing might sound amazing, we'll get to audio quality in a second, but does this thing look like a $330 headset to you? Probably not, you know? The entire right side of the ear cup is your volume control, so it's a wheel, but it's not textured in any way, and adjusting the volume with one finger is impossible just because you don't have that precise control. You need to use two fingers in order to give yourself a little bit volume or to reduce it, and I feel like that's kind of stupid. You definitely need texture to adjust volume because otherwise your fingers are slipping and you don't have that precise control. All the buttons are anything but high quality, feels a little too plastic. And the swappable battery compartment, it's on the side of the microphone, and when the microphone is attached, make sure the microphone is facing down, and that's the only way you can actually remove the battery. If the microphone is up, you cannot take off the little cover. I will say the ear cups are thick enough and they provide a beautiful seal around my ears that not only work beautifully with ANC, but also passive noise isolation is really good with these. There is no knobbing on the interior and a very thick piece of padding on the center of the ear cup so that if you do make eye contact, if you make ear contact with the interior, it will not be a problem. Unlike it is the problem with like 90% of users who get the Nova Pro Wireless. But man, even just touching this thing feels so much more premium. Come on, Turtle Beach. It's also much heavier. Now I know this sounds a little bit like a dumpster fire and I'm just crapping all over this product, but I have to be critical. First of all, because of the price point, and second of all, it is my very first experience with a Turtle Beach product, and this being their flagship, you know, it makes me worried about what is underneath it. I've had some other minor issues with Bluetooth connectivity, so direct line of sight, everything is fine, and all of a sudden I lose connection. It reestablishes by itself in a few seconds, so that's good, but still I'm wondering why. Swapping the batteries is just as seamless as on Steelseries. You take out the battery, plug into the base to charge, take the fresh battery, insert it here, it auto powers on, so you don't have to touch anything. It does take about like 20 seconds for the whole thing to reestablish connection, so a bit slower than Steelseries. Battery life on this thing is rated up to 12 hours per battery, so totally acceptable, but on my unit, for some reason, there's like a beep, and then it just shuts off when the battery is dead. There's no notification, there's no warning light, like, hey, change out the battery. You know, voice prompts are enabled on this thing, and yet there's no voice prompt for a battery low indication. The battery is charged very quickly inside the base, so in 1 hour you get up to 12 hours of playtime, which is awesome. And we also have the USB-C port on the headset, which allows you to also charge the battery that's inside the headset at the same time. The thing is, you cannot run the headset in wired mode. You need to have the receiver, which is that base, to be plugged in to get the connection. Also, the buttons on the Stealth Pro are in a really awkward position. They're not easy to reach and find with your finger because they're right beside the frame, and so you have to kind of stick your finger in there. Just really uncomfortable. The button design on the Steelseries is so much better. Everything is laid out in the Steelseries in a much more intuitive method. Intuitive way? Intuitive way. The active noise cancellation, I would say, is in line with Steelseries and the Sony H9. It helps to kind of deaden your background noise, and that's about it. So ANC for AC is good for like maybe a fridge humming in background, but it's not gonna totally kill your, construction happening from upstairs. Speaking of which. One of the biggest wins with the Stealth Pro is actually the audio quality versus the Steelseries, because the mid-range on this pair is just a lot more present. And this, I love crawling here. This is terrifying. Squad has some of the best audio design when it comes to being in your environment, especially in this type of environment. I also love coming to the range and doing the aim-to-tank rocket launcher because it's just so powerful. Check this out. Oh, that distance and the beautiful bass coming through. If you have not yet played Crisis Remastered, I highly recommend it. As soon as you press that extra armor, I can feel the ear cups just like sucking me in with the bass. It's really, really nice. The score for The Last of Us is absolutely brilliant. Good to listen to while you wait for this thing to build shaders. I prefer the isolation and the comfort on the Stealth Pro versus my SteelSeries. And also, when it comes to the drivers, I feel like the resolution is better on the Stealth Pro. They sound more full, they're very powerful, very fun as well, so not super neutral. You know, the high end, I would say, is controlled fine. There's good bass response in there. That's been like the most impressive thing with this pair. And the thing that keeps me putting these things back on when I'm gaming, because it just has a much more impactful presentation versus the SteelSeries. Overall, this thing has been a really mixed bag. More negatives than positives in here, like the handling of the volume controls, all the buttons is terrible. The build quality is just not up to par to anything that else is available on the market for this price point. The microphone quality is acceptable, it's not horrible, but it's nowhere near as good as the Corsair HS80 RGB wireless. That is clearly the benchmark for wireless microphones. I feel like the bass could have been slightly smaller so nobody confuses it with like an RGB coaster. The saving grace is the audio quality in the wireless space. Totally acceptable for the price point. Powerful, bassy, nice amount of resolution, particularly for my ears, and a beautiful seal around the ears with ANC on and off. But I'm sorry, it will not be replacing my SteelSeries. Handling on this thing is better in every single way. Battery life is good, and comfort-wise, you know, a slight compromise there, and I would say a slight compromise in audio quality as well, but I'm willing to sacrifice on audio quality to get everything else right. With the Stealth Pro out of the way, I do have a new contender for the wireless space, something from Razer, the updated Black Shark V2 Pro, also wireless headset, so stay tuned for my full long-term experience. I'm Dmitry, thanks so much for watching. Check out this other relevant content, subscribe for more. I'll talk to you in the next video.